day of March 2024. I'm your host tonight. Excuse me, Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the nuclearproctologist.org. And you can call into these live shows at 7:09. We're in Canada, so it's a 1 in front of it. 589-4406. 709-589. Give a shit. Giving a shit. That's what we should do with the nuclear industry. Flush it down the toilet. Unfortunately, then it poisons our ocean, which is conveniently doing already. I'm thinking about changing the name of the show to the Radioactive Comedy Show. Radioactive dirt, dump it into the sea, says nuclear. A group of scientists. There's a group of scientists that wanted to dump 30 million one-ton bags into the Pacific Ocean. So that's what I got a poll tonight. I just forgot to import something. Here we go. Maybe we should stuff it up their arses. 30 million scientists, we can stuff a one-ton bag up each of their arse. That should put a friggin' stop to their bullshit for a while. Does nuclear scumbags / scientists idea to dump 30 million one-ton bags of radiation in the ocean prove that nuclear is hopelessly evil? I do believe it does. Like, what's wrong with these people, really? I don't know. I think in order to get a promotion in the nuclear industry, you got to come out and publicly be evil, stupid evil, right? Like, what kind of moron would suggest dumping 30 million one-ton bags into the ocean is somehow sensible? And this is a group of them. It's bad enough if there's just one of them. We're talking about a group of them. So if you look up this story, the officials of the Ministry of Environment said they're up to 30 million tons of bags, one-ton bags, and that the bags deteriorate after 3 years. So meaning it has to be repackaged every 3 years. First off, there's zero possibility they're going to repackage any of the bags. Second off, just try wrapping your mind around packaging 1 million bags and multiply it by 30. You'll see where I'm coming from. A group of lunatics, maniacs, morons, dipsticks, kids that didn't get beat up enough in school apparently, have suggested taking a radioactive soil that has been collected in Japan and dump it into the Pacific. Should we put the nuclear scientists in one-ton bags and dump them in the fucking Pacific? Is that a stupid idea? They said they would put it in containers. We can put nuclear scientists in containers. Anybody out there volunteer to put nuclear scientists in containers? 1 dead nuclear scientist, 2 dead nuclear scientists. I'm starting to like it. The sea is common property of all of humankind, and the key is whether fishermen and the general public will support the proposal. Well, they'll support my proposal, I bet you. But all the nuclear scientists, well, we don't have to kill them. We'll just put them in bags, put them in containers, and throw them in the ocean. We'll give them straws that reach to the surface so they can breathe air. The crazies / nuclear scientists fail to take into account what other countries might have to say about it. Well, we are talking about nuclear scientists. As the Pacific isn't owned by any one country, this idea will likely receive a very negative reception from other countries. I doubt it, actually. Journalists would be happy to sell the idea. The perception outside of Japan and the already massive dumping of radioactive material into the Pacific is already quite critical. Well, what year was this story again, Dana? This is 2011. So let's just pretend these are all nuclear scientists. And just for once in our life we can smile at the dead nuclear scientists falling out of the sky. Let's hit throw them from a plane. That's a better idea. and then they got to get hit a 1-ton bag. And if he hits the 1-ton bag perfectly, they will let him live. They don't get a parachute, though. But if you hit the 1-ton bag and survives, we'll let him live. How about that? This is tempered only by the understanding that some of it may have been unstoppable due to the severity of the accident, which other countries tolerate purposefully dumping a radioactive soil into the Pacific by a private sector company. This would likely cause a large scandal and problems that the researcher understands. Well, the 1-ton bags are 6 feet tall, and if you stack them on top of each other, 6 of them is 36 feet. Or 5 of them is 30 feet, rather. And so the 1-ton bags we're talking about is a 30-foot wall, 6 feet wide, of 1-ton bags, wrapped around the entire planet more than once. That's what we're talking about, right? Like, the enormity of how much we're talking about is stunning. There's actually 105,000 sites of 1-ton bags. But nothing got out, so that's okay. That's pretty cool. Man, if I had known, I would have bought shares in those 1-ton bags. I don't give a shit what people would say to me today. I would have made a fucking fortune. We could have funded this whole operation for 1,000 years. The radioactive dumping into the Pacific to date is already beginning to show signs it's not going to stay contained around Japan. We reported earlier how the radiation is already spread across the Pacific rather than diluting. Consider liking, clicking a few buttons, stuff like that. That's pretty cool. If you don't, nuclear is going to get you. And I'll give you a cookie if you subscribe. I'll send you a cookie. I got a bunch of carrier pigeons out in the garden ready to go. How do we save nuclear scientists from committing suicide for the whole planet is what I'd like to know. Eerie photos inside the Fukushima nuclear plant. Ooh. Shows haunting images. Now, this is TEPCO's pictures from a few days ago. That's why I'm mocking it. TEPCO's got no pictures from inside the reactor because nothing can survive in there. And this story is, even though they acknowledged it 2 days after they started, that they had to give up on it, this story is still circulating nonstop. Haunting pictures. That's probably the last picture Shinzo Abe took, hopefully. Ignace here in Canada and the Nuclear Waste Management Organization inked a historical agreement. Again, these are memorandums types of understandings that actually don't mean anything, right? But it's just a big whoop whoop for the Nuclear Waste Management Organization, which has $28 billion now for 19 years. And all he done was just going around greasing people's pockets, causing a divide in the communities where they want to put the nuclear waste so that when they finally have a referendum, it gets voted down. They don't want a solution, right? That's the mayor of Ignace over there. And the girl with the blue on is the nuclear waste management useful idiot. She's making a fortune doing nothing. And she doesn't have to accomplish anything. She makes a fortune. It's a great job, right? All you got to do is be evil. And so what they're going to do is, like, you know, we talked about this a little bit last night, actually. Let me just explain it one more time. Because crazy doesn't quite do it justify. Calling them crazy, that really doesn't quite do it justice when you talk about the Nuclear Waste Management Organization. So what they're talking about doing, and what they had done up in Bruce, was they bought 1,500 acres. 1,500 acres of farmland, prime farmland, the best that the nuclear money can buy. And the whole site that they're going to use on top is going to be 250 acres. So why buy 1,500 acres? The 250 acres, because that's where they're going to repackage everything. So everything shipped there is vented, so it won't be long before everybody in that city and those communities within 100 miles are going to have vicious illnesses and diseases. because cancer is not the only thing from this nightmarish thing, which is a square mile. And the remainder will continue to be used as is today for farmland, because they're repackaging it as all this waste coming out. So they need farmland to move the radiation into the local area so they don't get a bad reputation. It ends up in the water tables constantly all day, every day. Both sides of the highways, whoever's living on the highways there is getting brutal doses. And this is in the middle of, and where they picked the 1,500 acres, get a load of this, that 1,500 acres is in the center of this massive area all around it of farmland. Just like all nuclear power plants, that's where they build them because they're hemorrhaging radiation. But they're going to throw a whole bunch of free money at the community in the meantime. Benefits to the township from 2024 to 2,105. Benefits. They'll be burning that much money at the hospitals in the area and just cancer every year. And they also sent delegations on several junkets. Inglis has sent, no they didn't, it was the Nuclear Waste Management Organization that's paying for everything, that's who sent it. They sent them over to Finland to see a big hole in the ground. Like, for starters, you know that's going to melt down at some point in the future, right? Because this is fuel rods we're talking about. These are still splitting atoms. So the minute you put that away, you're on a countdown timer to when it melts down. Once it melts down, it ignites all the other stuff too. It doesn't need to be there, and it's got to be right alongside the fresh water. That's the only seems to be the only criteria. It has to be right alongside the fresh water. Yes, $130 billion to replace the U.S. Minuteman nuclear missiles. Well, hang on a second here now. So let's look at some numbers here. $130 billion. $130 billion. Okay, so it's $130 billion. I'll do some quick math for you. I want to show you, it's $130 billion. Divide that by $5 million. It's not even that right now. It's $5 million for a geothermal well that would power the homes for 1,000 people. So it's a megawatt, right? Which is that's 5,000. I screwed that up. Hang on one second. Let me do that again. I thought it was a pretty big number. 130,000. Come on, Dana. Time is precious. One more zero, Dana. Get it with it. Divide it by 5 million. I'll get there. I can do this. Just have some patience. That's 26,000 times 1,000 people for geothermal of energy. That's 26 million people. That's 26 million people. They're spending $1 trillion, right? So if they took the $1 trillion and just spent it on geothermal, they would have clean energy for the entire country for the next 100 years. And then, because geothermal is about $5 million per megawatt. There's 1,000 megawatts in a gigawatt. A gigawatt powers 1 million homes, right? $130 billion plan to replace the U.S. Minuteman nuclear missiles. These are missiles that they can't use on top of that, right? So you got submarines with missiles you can't use. You got how many billions of dollars are each of these fighter planes that are useless unless there's lots of wars, which currently there is, because you can't have these things without wars. Where's the fun in that, right? But you can't use nuclear missiles, because the minute you start using nuclear missiles, you can't cash the checks anymore. And so they show you all this fancy nothings to justify. It's like it's insane. And then they tell you right where the missiles are to, so there's no way Russia's going to work out where to aim their missiles. And what they do with this stuff, what they do, let me explain that, because that's kind of important. So they had, at one point, they had 50,000 of these Minuteman sites, and they're in farmers' fields. And what the idea was, let me show you that now, because I got some, I thought I did anyway. Yeah, here we go. So this is Montana missile man sites. And what they do is they put them in communities so that if Russia or China or whoever the current boogeyman is attacks one of these missile man sites, they'll say they're attacking the community. And they'll use that to drum up support to go after them. So they're holding the communities as human shields. That's what a missile man site is. So they'll show you these pictures, but they're always right alongside the communities. And we have quite a few of these different maps from across the country. 3 companies were awarded GAIN vouchers to advance nuclear technology. GAIN vouchers. This is a neat way to say they're not funding these companies, but that's exactly what they're doing. Element Factory. We're going to work with Idaho National Laboratories. Kanata America will collaborate with the degenerate Sandia National Laboratories. And Oklo, Santa Clara, will partner with the degenerate, always relentlessly degenerate Idaho National Laboratories. All of these national laboratories, by the way, are built on the biggest aquifers in that part of the country. You know, Hanford, they expect at least another $700 billion to clean up a lot of the site. Not all the site, but a chunk of the site. 730, was it? 740 billion or something. Stupid. That's what nuclear is, because you can't use the weapon. Nuclear Waste Management Organization has a location near Thunder Bay and Lake Huron. Thunder Bay, one of the biggest aquifers in western North America. And Lake Huron is one of the biggest aquifers in North America. And to show you these disease factors, because you can't contain the emissions from the spent fuel pools. Those reactor cores that are in the fuel pools are still splitting the same atoms, and they're released into the community. That's why they're surrounded by farms. Almost every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms. According to the industry-funded organizations, funded by the industry itself, and therefore they're going to do whatever the industry tells them to do. It's not funded by the industry in reality, though. It's funded by the ratepayers, right? It's Canada, though, because Canada is totally... English Township nearby Wabigoon, my apologies if I butcher your name, Lake and Ojibway nations are each in a willingness process, difficult return zones / nuclear wastelands. Willingness process, just got to get the right person in office, give them a suitcase with a lot of money into it, and life is good. Japan's energy revival facing public resistance. This is a strange story. Japan aims to increase, because lately they've been calling it a nuclear renaissance. There is no nuclear renaissance, right? Last year, nuclear went backwards 1.7 gigawatts, and renewables jumped ahead in 12 months now, in a 12-month period, 2023, 507 gigawatts. So how is there a nuclear renaissance when nuclear went backwards? 2 large nuclear plants, basically. We're at 30 small reactors. That'll never exist. Because renewables are just incredible. And like, if you put in renewables all across your country, yeah, some places the wind's not going to blow, but it's blowing basically everywhere else. So you just transmit power to the spots where it's not blowing today. Because generally it's always, if you put your windmills at the top of mountains and on the coastlines on the hills, that's where the wind's always blowing, of course. But if you got windmill and solar across your country, that's your grid. So it's always sunny, always windy somewhere close by. So you always got power. But if you, like, ideally you would do geothermal. Because geothermal doesn't need storage 24 hours a day. And the temperatures are hotter than nuclear. So you can do more with it. And it's off-the-shelf product. You don't need anything. You don't need 9,000 people going to work every day. You just need 20 or 30 to maintain the site. And so you're not sucking the life out of the communities by exorbitant prices to justify the wages for the scumbags at the nuclear industry, right? These are scumbags. They should all be ashamed of themselves. Japan aims to increase the nuclear energy production but faces challenges due to the fact that they're running out of scumbags. That's probably what's going on. Ah, yeah. This is 2021, March the 18th. We're going to head back into the time machine. Again. Thank goodness. There's some fun stuff coming up. Fukushima Daiichi Unit 3 new containment leaks. Containment leaks. Well, you see the building over there? There is no containment. There's nothing. That's the same day or the day after the tsunami or it blew up. There's nothing left to the building. It's just a stump. We'll get to that picture in a second. And what do you think of the pictures I had there at the other show earlier the week, Sunday show I think it was, where we had two pictures that TEPCO's live cams. One was a cloudy sky and one was a perfectly sunny sky. That was during the earthquake, right? They had last week, and they still haven't reported anything extra on that. You know that the evidence eventually over the next few weeks will show up. The last time I had a big earthquake, there was over 5,000 schools that had significant damage, had to do insurance. It was like the railway tracks were busted in 1,200 places or something. The high-speed rail. That was last year, or the year before last, or 2021, that big 2022, I can't remember. We covered it. New problems have been found related to the containment damage at the Unit 3 caused by the February 2021 earthquake. So February 2021, I can probably find that if I look for it. What was the price tag on that? People remember off the top of their heads? It was almost $6 billion or something in insurance. Not everybody had insurance, of course. New evidence appears to have found the location of at least some of the leaks. Oh yeah, they said water spilled out of the fuel pool at the top of the building that doesn't exist. So if we go backwards though, these are 190-foot buildings. Let's go back to 2021. Let me double check here. Remember when it was the 10th anniversary when they were allegedly moving the fuel out of the fuel pools at the top of a building that doesn't even exist. And this is them allegedly in front of, this is absurdness, right? So look at the building over there and imagine that this is what they're claiming they're doing. Everything is, these are maniacs, eh? Now we covered it, this was April 2021, I think. One of these stories will have the date on. The operator of the crippled to another location for safe storage. Going to move the fuel. Going to move the fuel somewhere else. Which was a simply not true story. That's reactor 3 over there and reactor 4. Both of them, they claimed they got the fuels out of the pool. We harassed them for like 6 days when this story was originally coming out. We covered it each day. It was the first removal of such fuel from a storage pool of the number 1, 2 to number 3 reactors, which suffered meltdowns. They don't give it any prominence either. I had a meltdown. Have a nice day. 7 unspent fuel rod assemblies. Unspent fuel rod assembly. What are they talking about in reactor 3? There was no unspent fuel rod assemblies. The reactor was running. Were transferred Tuesday to a common pool about 100 meters away, the common spent fuel pool. I'll cover that coming up in a little tiny bit. We got that in the pile. The transfer to nuclear fuel, which emits high levels of radiation from the number 3 unit pool, is expected to lower the risks of the decommissioning work. Telling a lie comes so natural for these people that if they seen the truth, they would just trip over and break their fucking neck. They wouldn't know what it was. Like, oh, I should be okay. And then reactor 3 actually exploded. It kicked the fuel pool and the reactor core right out of the building. You can see it in the videos we play quite often. Hang on, just looking for a better... let me go somewhere else. Just bear with me. Just word it. I swear, I promise. Honest to goodness. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. That's better. Is expected to lower the risk of the decontamination work. So they built this contraption off-site, and then they assembled it with cranes. It doesn't physically touch reactor 1 or reactor 3 because that will crumble if you touch it, right? And this is the cover story we're talking about right now. The task was completed in 20 minutes and carried out by about a dozen workers in paper suits / protective gear. And so you got the truck down there. Look at the debris on the roofs across the street. Notice how there's no pavement, everything is rusted. If it wasn't for laws, they wouldn't have anything to do, I suppose. And since the common pool undergoes regular checkups required by law, I wonder why they put that in there, right? Just to make it look official, right? So by law, they got to go. Who's going to go up to the top of a nuclear meltdown? You got to go up 100 feet above what you're looking at right there, and then look down and say, "Well, the pool's not where it's supposed to be. Maybe it's down here somewhere." This is an idiot industry. This is an industry of nothing but idiots. Because they all covered up the nuclear meltdowns. They covered up the fuel pool detonations symmetrically right throughout the industry worldwide. The fuel transfer will be suspended since the common spent pool undergoes regular checkups required by law. This is why they're going to suspend because they only moved out 7 assemblies, they said. And then they took a break for another 6 years or something. TEPCO aims to transfer all of the remaining 559 spent and unspent. Well, there's actually 3,450 assemblies in each of the buildings because they don't have a repository anywhere to put it. And that's where they store it because very little can go into the dry cast, right? Usually around 40, 50 years of age or something. Unspent fuel assemblies in number 3 unit storage pool to the common pool by March 20. And so they announced it on the anniversary, but there was just before that anniversary, the 10th anniversary, there were 738 pictures released from a drone. I got this video, actually, I'm going to play this video in a second. And you can see over there, I should point this stuff out to you, I suppose. Where'd Dana go? Little Dana, big Dana. Little big. I'll do that again. So that's the common spent fuel pool right here. That's reactor 4. Right across from it is the common spent fuel pool. And you see all the steel sheets? You can see these steel sheets. Everything is steel sheets, right? That's trying to shield people from the... Because this thing threw the fuel rods. There's nothing left of the building, right? And I show you pictures already. So... this is going to come out, it's going to drive down here, and then it's going to back up into here. Of course, let's look at the rest of the evidence first, though, before we say yes. And then I'm just taking sort of screenshots of the video, but I'm going to play the video actually, because I'm a good guy like that, right? So it's driving down the road, durka, 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 all the way down the road. And down the road we go. Have a nice day. See you never. And so this is a special truck. This is all axles, the whole friggin' thing. It's extra wide. Those cast weighs over 100,000 pounds. It crawls along at about 4 feet a minute. So it's a very, very slow process. So this is all just posturing. There is no fuel pool. They're not getting no fuel out of the pool. They're going to put it. They got it in a dry cast, he claimed, and then they're going to put it in the fuel pool. Take it out of the dry cast, put it underwater, take it out of the dry cast, and put it in the common spent fuel pool. A dib, 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 a dub, dub, dub. And that's not the video. Just bear with me. Did I screw this up too? Yeah, that video is supposed to be right there. I can get it. Let me take a second. Yeah, it's not there. We're supposed to be hanging. I put it there. I personally put it there. It couldn't go anywhere. I put it there myself, for goodness sakes. Here we go. I'll just go reacquire it. We'll play the video, because that's how we roll around here. Rah, 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 rah. All right, here comes the video. I'm going to get my big head out of the way. And I'm just going to let you watch the video. I'm not going to crack a bunch of... Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That was amazing. Those little nippers are really good, eh? It's simply not true what they're talking about. You can't take fuel out of a pool that doesn't exist anymore. And so the two pictures at the top are actually official pictures of the fuel pool that doesn't exist, because the fuel pool's at the very top of the building. Got those red depictions up there for you. Fuel removal number 3 originally was scheduled to start in 2014, but was pushed back multiple times till 2021. There's high levels of radiation, I'll say. Retrieval of the melted fuel that had dripped down in the containment vessel at the number 3, dripping down. Let's go watch the video. I think it's better to watch the video. Let's look at the video of reactor 3 going kapooey. This is slow motion. This is quite pretty, actually. So the building you're looking at there is 190 foot, 19 stories, 65 meters. The big chunks you see falling back down are actually the fuel pools in the reactor core. It ejected them right out of the buildings. And these are lethal doses everywhere. You're not going near that. That's a Medusa, right? And so reactor 3 simply doesn't exist. But nice try though, scumbag, nuclear industry. That's why I like the nuclear industry. You can count on them to be the scumbaggery of scumbags. They're really only good at being scumbags. They don't seem to be good at anything else. Retrieval of melted fuel that had dripped. Oh yeah, melted really. Meltdowns. And the lie started right away, right? They never lost a friggin' moment. The lies were perpetual worldwide immediately. Yeah, so Tuesday, this is 2019. My mistake. First batch of Fukushima nuclear power plant fuel transferred to the storage facility. You guys are amazing. You got fuel pools that completely disappeared and you just conjured them out of thin air. That's amazing. And this is reactor 4. That's the picture they use for reactor 4. With all the markings pixelated out. Has transferred the first portion of the fuel from one of the damaged reactor's fuel storage pools to a nearby facility. Moscow says, using remotely controlled equipment. Dana says, shut up. Yeah, but there's no building, stupid. As of Tuesday, workers have put 7 unused fuel units in the cast. Huh? Oh my God. It's amazing. Should we sacrifice a nuclear scientist every Sunday on an altar or something to the demon gods before transferring them to storage facilities located 328 feet from the damaged buildings? The common spent storage pool, Dana. Don't you know anything? I know what you're saying, but you're a liar. Stop lying. That's the video there. Okay, so there were 738, give or take 2 or 3, pictures from a drone that were released. It was the 10th anniversary. That's right. That's where I got confused. So anyway, you got these pictures. They were on a Chinese site, and there's nobody that covered the videos. Even today, I'm the only person that's ever covered the videos. Said, ugh. I'm the only person to ever do that. It's pretty cool. History will remember that, I'm pretty sure, and that's probably about it. Dana went, ugh. Ugh. So, you can see parts of reactor 4. You can see parts of reactor 3. But you can't see anything of the common spent fuel pool across the street. That's the common spent fuel pool. She's pretty, isn't she? Look at that. Well, you can't really say that because you can't see nothing, Dana. I know. It's a joke. Come on, man. Come on. Renewed nuclear chain reaction feared at the spent fuel storage pool. At the renewed nuclear chain reaction, renewed. So it already melted down in the storage pool. And there was another one, they thought, right? Another recriticality, a renewed one. Renewed chain reaction. That means there was a chain reaction. That means she's gone. And then that would explain that, right? Why everything is completely pixelated out. Don't worry, I got more pictures. Never fucking boring around here. Renewed nuclear chain reaction feared at the spent fuel storage pool. Oh, jeez. Fukushima radioactive inventory is 30 to 40 times as high as Chernobyl. Well, they estimated there was 8 to 10 reactor cores in each of the reactor buildings. And just because they're not in the reactors themselves, they're in the fuel pool, doesn't mean they can't melt down like a typical nuclear meltdown. Because they can't. They're still splitting atoms. And they will be for another million years. And that's why they're so bad, kids. So 30 to 40 times as high as in Chernobyl. But see, what they don't take into account is that the Chernobyl reactor was a graphite reactor. whereas these are pure uranium, pure plutonium, and they're much bigger, which means that each reactor is equal to about 100 Chernobyls. Even the Ruskies agreed with that, you know. Let me see if you can find the little demons. Anything's possible. Oh. The only problem is when I type in Chernobyl, I get the entire phone book because I got about 10 terawatts of documentation, terabits or whatever you call it, terawatts, terrorists. This is the French or the Ruskies equating Fukushima reactors to the Chernobyl reactors.
The fact that the reactor in Japan is 100 times more powerful than the one in Chernobyl, and in fact the two stations, the two power plants in the Fukushima region produce the world's biggest joint amount of energy. And
like the whole site itself, right? But the reactors, so you're talking about 4,000 Chernobyls. And because when you put the reactor 3 into the equation, which was the plutonium mixed oxide Medusa, you are on a whole different ball game. And the problem with the reason like nuclear is so bad is because it's 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. So for industrial poison, you need 2 billion times more to get the same poison as you do for radiation. So a single atom, which is absurd, impossible to filter, right? Common spent fuel pool now being sprayed with water contained 6,375 spent assemblies. Now I just showed you a line where they had a renewed chain reaction in the common spent fuel pool. They actually got a meltdown, right? And let's bring that up. 6,375, was it? Let's go with that number. 6,375 spent fuel assemblies. Each assembly got 100 fuel rods that are 18 pounds each and are 12 feet long. So multiply it by 1,800 pounds equals 6 million, 11 million. I was thinking about the fuel pools at the top of the buildings, are about half of it, which is 11.5 million pounds. And what was it they said? Oh yeah, that's right. Renewed chain, an ongoing chain reaction feared at the spent fuel storage pool. So that there's a meltdown. What they're saying now, and the evidence, the pictures of it clearly suggest that's what happened. Look at it. There's nothing left. Well, I'm sorry, you can't tell because everything is pixelated. So here were these drone pictures released on the 10th anniversary. When you zoomed in, you say, well, what the frig am I looking at? And you're like, holy shit. Holy shit, everything is pixelated out. Now, behind it, up on the top of it, you can see transport trucks all piled up from the tsunami. Because it's at the same height as the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 reactors. They're on the same street, right? You know where that truck drove 328 feet or something? So why did they pixelate that? Now, but the common spent fuel pool, they know, and same with the other pools at the site, are stuffed beyond capacity because they don't have a repository, right? Let alone anywhere else worldwide. So who knows how much they put there, because it's not uncommon for them to take fuel from other sites that are decommissioning and store it at that site, for instance. Would be like Chernobyl on steroids. The spent fuel catches fire, the nuclear engineer who worked at the identical plant. So each reactor building is what they actually meant there, holds 3,450 spent fuel assemblies. which is 6 million pounds or something, is it? That was the 6 million pounds I was looking for, the 6 million pound fuel storage money thingy. The hell did I just say? 3,450 spent fuel assemblies in the pools at the top of the building times 1,800 pounds. Get your number, put your bids in. 6.2 million pounds. So that's 24 million plus the spent fuel pool is another 11 million. That's 36 million pounds. And how many pounds was in the Hiroshima? 20, 30 pounds or something? Because the numbers are always changing, isn't it? With these degenerates. So the common spent fuel pool had 6,375, but we know they had a criticality there because they did. Okay, so we're... So the number 3 spent fuel pool, by the way, that's the official picture of the number 3 spent fuel pool. So these are at the top of the buildings, right? But, of course, you know the problem with that story is there is no top to reactor 3. I showed you the explosion. I played the video. I sang the song. I even got up and danced for you. You didn't see it because you were watching the video, but I got up and danced for you at the same time. Fukushima Daiichi notch tanks found to be damaged. This is crazy stuff, by the way. So originally, they had multiple meltdowns, and they were building these little tiny tanks. And this is where they were putting the water, they said. You can see water just flowing over that one. Or a group of rectangular water tanks. That's where most of the 1,000 tanks that they talk about is these little tiny tanks. With an appearance similar to a dumpster. These portable tanks were used early in the disaster to hold the contaminated water. What are they talking about? Like, when this melted down, all you can do is run away. And then you get the homeless to do some basic stuff, but you couldn't go back in there. Nobody's ever getting near these buildings. The tank in this most recent report is similar to those notch tanks used in 2013 at the tank farm pictured below. So they're similar to that. Look at the water running out of it. There's nothing in the tanks. The tanks are empty. The tanks were built to manipulate you, so you didn't look at the reactors themselves. Because the minute you look at the reactors, you realize that there is no fuel pools, there is no reactor core, and that the tanks is a fable. But the tanks... The tanks were filled up with highly radioactive material underneath the site in an aquifer. That's what the tanks were filled up, and all the tanks were filled up in 2013. You can go back to last night's video if you didn't see that video. At the very beginning of it, I played that whole video for you. 2 notch tanks in the W storage area were found to have holes corroded through the lids. Corroded through the lids. That's the Wigner effect in overdrive. And you see that picture over there? And sheet curing. Like, this is not sheet curing, it's called a tarp. You morons. Sheet curing. So if you're just reading this, and these tanks were gray in color when they were put into use at the Fukushima Daiichi. These people are insane. Is there any way to describe them? And scumbags. Did I mention they were scumbags? I don't know if I ever mentioned that before. Fukushima Daiichi waste containers repaired with sticker sheets. You're like, no, Dana, come on, Dana, no. There's no way. It's bullshit, Dana. You're lying. I wish I was. This is I don't know if it's sticker sheets. This is not even duct tape. It's just... My God, boy. TEPCO published new information about solid radioactive waste containers in September. So this is solid radioactive waste. So if this is solid radioactive waste, what the fuck is your hand doing there? Like, there's no way you're going to put your hand there if that's solid radioactive waste. There's just no way. There's nothing in them. So there's 5,338 containers were inspected. This is 2021. This took place after a container leaked highly radioactive liquids over the summer. Of those, 304 had significant corrosion of 5,338, and 342 had significant dents. TEPCO repaired the radioactive waste containers. This is solid waste now. Imagine this is what they're saying is sludge, right? You don't put your hand near this stuff, okay? You put your hand there, you lose it. That has suffered corrosion damage and leaks. No other sealing work appeared to have been done to the containers besides plastic sheets / the whole story is so absurd. I don't know if I should laugh or just fucking cry here. TEPCO provided no further information on the plastic sticker material. I suppose not. That's about the only smart thing they've done, isn't it? There's one of the stickers right here, look. See, I'm not the only crazy fucker out there. I got proof of it now. I got their diapers. Put the diapers on your tanks. There you go. Ingenuity. So you can see they got tape right there, and then tape on the bottom of that one up there. Those poor bastards, whoever they are, they haven't got a hand anymore. They would have lost their hand doing that. If there was anything in the tank, you can't go over there and stand there, right? Let alone get your hand there. A note in the document said that they need to determine the internal contents of 4,011 waste containers. They don't even know what's fucking in 4,000 containers. Nothing surprises me, actually. As of August 16, 2021, 249 waste containers had their contents identified. Really? Somebody went and looked in it, did they? We need volunteers, extra $50. Pick George. No, he's in the hospital. Lost his hand yesterday, putting his hand too close to the tank. Oh, man. I was freaking laughing my ass off when I read that today, and I was like, oh, this is crazy stuff. No one's going to believe it. I got it. I didn't Photoshop it. This is actually a story. You're like, no, you fucking Photoshopped it, Dana. Honest to God, I didn't. Look at it. I'm pretty good, but I'm not that fucking good. Japan's nuclear regulatory agency admits Fukushima Daiichi is still leaking into the Pacific. I don't know where it could possibly leak from. They got fucking tape on it, for God's sake. That slipped out. Big dog. Can anything leak out of that building, I wonder? Reactor Medusa? The head of the Japan's nuclear regulatory agency, 2015, stated that the contaminated water to Fukushima Daiichi is continuing to seep. It's seeping. They told a meeting of the body of commissioners after he examined the recent studies carried out on groundwater samples at the plant that detected high levels of cesium, tritium, and other radioactive contaminants. Well, tritium is the lowest single. So if you got other radioactive contaminants or cesium, it's going to drown out the tritium. You couldn't detect it. But by proxy, all the water is going to be tritiated. It's just impossible not to be. So, like, let's say you go buy a car and you got a big dent in the hood. And you drive to Fukushima and you park it. And 2 minutes later, the rain starts falling out. And that little dent fills up with water. That's tritiated rain. Because it's on that site, right? So everything is tritiated. Everything is. And other radioactive contaminants. So what do you mean, like other radioactive contaminants? I'm more worried about them than I am about tritium. I'm definitely worried about tritium. It's just a scumbag industry, right? Another radio, and the signal from them will drown out the signal from the tritium, see? Figuratively, because it's a little more complicated than that, obviously, but not much. TEPCO reiterated, and I can't even pronounce that tonight, way to go, Dana, that the Unit 2 cable trench is the source of the leak. The Nuclear Regulatory Agency is disputing that assumption and thinks there are more pathways than a damaged nuclear plant is leaking contaminated water out to the sea. So TEPCO is trying to assert that the only way anything can leak is if it, and it got me using the word now, the only way anything can escape the site is if it's in the trench. That's astounding, isn't it? So they think there's nothing can get out of the building, only the stuff that's in the trench. Which is reactor 3, right? You know, the one where they found a few leaks? The one where they took the cast and they brought it over to the common spent fuel pool that had a recriticality shortly after it melted down. That's the mixed oxide site. That one there, the plutonium mixed oxide fuel. That's 2 billion times more toxic than a normal meltdown. Toxic groundwater is reaching the sea. I got no idea how that's possible, but I'll take their word on it. So everything you see there with green on it, that's a reagent that they sprayed on it to stop the atoms from splitting into the local environment. And the people that done it would have died that day. And because they do it with a guy that goes in there with a hose and a paper suit on. And he sprays this reagent all over the place. And that sticks and stops the atoms, apparently, from floating away. Now look at all the damage over there. And look at these sandbags they got there. Look at the damage to the building, big hole in the building right there. And then look on the roof, it's just endless debris. Now they got to cover over reactor 1 on that same picture, right? Because when you look at the picture, that's reactor 1 up there, and you can see reactor 2. So to have to cover the Kevlar sarcophagus around reactor 1 was quite a feat, right? They built it off site and brought it in and assembled it with cranes. So this is quite a ways down the road, and they still haven't got any of that debris. They haven't got any of this debris cleaned up. And even today, that's not cleaned up. You see all the windows missing, the damage. That was because of the detonation too, right? But they got reactor 1 with this. Do you see how big the panels are? They're held there by gravity. They're very heavy, eh? Is that one of the tank farms up there, I wonder? The idea of the tanks was to manipulate you into thinking nothing got out, and they're not going to be responsible for killing the planet and originally the Pacific Ocean, then the planet, right? You can see the ceiling up there is actually distorted quite severely, eh? Looks like they got a tarp on it, don't it? They laid there with a crane because it's not laid out symmetrical. Imagine have this shit job. You got to come in downhill from a nuclear meltdown. You got any idea how radioactive the air, let alone that water, actually is? And everything you see covered with green, that's the pumps, right? They pump around 4,500 tons a minute into the reactors. They're quite big. And you can see all the debris. So it's not very good pictures, but enough to give us... Look at the debris up there. Everything is green, is sprayed with a special reagent to stop the atoms from splitting. These are difficult to return zones, so to speak. But look at all the damage stuff. Look, and all the metal. Every time you see metal, it's completely rusted, eh? Nuclear is really good at that. So what was missing from all of these pictures? Let's do that again. We'll go through the pictures again. And the one thing you notice is there's no people. Now, there's supposed to be 7,000 people on that site, right? So when you start looking at these pictures, you don't see a single person a single time. Nowhere. And because they got this thing on it, we're quite a long ways down the road, but yet none of these pictures has shown any activity or people. None of the site is cleaned up at all. And we don't see any people, any traffic, any heavy equipment, no backhoes, no excavators, no homeless, no destitute, no victims of society, no immigrants. Because that's who's there, right? But there's no people, there's no traffic, there's no activity, right? Because they have to abandon the site constantly, because the earth is cracked and the steam coming out of the ground is lethal doses. The non-nuclear regulatory authorities said Wednesday it strongly suspects highly radioactive water at Fukushima 1 nuclear power plant is seeping into the ground. Again, the question we're begging to ask is, how can anything ever get out of the building? It's perfectly sealed. Look at it. So using the word seeping, whoever wrote the articles, they should get a punch in the fucking mouth for it, shouldn't they? July the 10th, 2013. Tokyo Electric Power Company, which is not a decommission authority, claims it believes the source of the contamination be from a pit from which highly radioactive water was found seeping in April 2011, shortly after the nuclear crisis erupted at the plant. Can you believe these guys? So nothing's getting out of the building. It's seeping from a trench. Nothing got out of the building, obviously. And, it's hard to comprehend it if you're not familiar, but this building is 190 feet tall. Look at it. And the fuel pools and reactor cores at the top of the building. Yeah, it's invisible, but TEPCO says it's there, so it must be there. Just it must be invisible, I guess. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't lie to us. TEPCO says safety upgraded at Fukushima plant after 2 people died. What was it Craig's always saying? Nobody died at Fukushima. You see it on every Fukushima video out there, even today. Nobody's ever died. Never heard of friggin' hear on anything in the history of nuclear. I believe you. Crazy. Yippee-ki-yay. Let's keep going here. So 2 people died in 2015, and they responded to the death of 2 workers by stopping work, which was amazing because usually homeless never get a day off, right? TEPCO's response is obviously super friggin' official. It seems to lack any serious analyst of the work processes and the management at the plant, Yakuza, that are the root cause of the many accidents that have injured or killed workers in the last year. TEPCO to release groundwater at Fukushima, potential consequences. So a lot of the tanks were the bolt-together tanks. I don't know if they were meant to hold anything on the air. Highly radioactive water and sludge. So here's the problem with the tanks. And I don't articulate it enough. Because there's so much madness every single day in these stories. It slips away, okay? So the bolt-together tanks. So they're pumping water from the aquifer under the buildings. They allegedly drilled in sideways. They're pumping water out of the aquifers. That's what's actually they said was in the tanks. Not from pouring it over it and sucking it back out. Remember, for years they were saying they were filtering it and then they were pouring it back on the reactor, melted reactor cores, and then they suck it back out and filter it and pour it back on, and that's why they only got 1,000 tanks, right? And because there's no one really out there gives a shit enough or understands the equation, there's been no blowback, right? Pushback. Well, us. The bolt together, me and my merry little crew of anti-nuclear brigade, we've been holding their feet to the fire. The bolt can, so what their story is that they're pouring water over the fuel, so it's washing out fuel particulates. They're pumping that up and putting it in the tank. And the problem with the story is the sediment, when that settles on the bottom, you're going to have a chain reaction, a criticality on the bottom of the tank. Because you got gammas and alphas and neutrons and betas all in one spot. And eventually you're going to have a chain reaction. Every one of the tanks, and they're going to burn a hole through it, and that's going to just pour out, right? Like Hanford. And like Moyak. And the tanks are empty. Because if you fill up the tank with that stuff, you can't build any more tanks on the site. You can't filter it, because the minute you start running this unbelievable lethal by the liter stuff through a filter, after 20 or 30 minutes, the filter is so radioactive you can never get near the filter again. It's not like a water filtration facility for your community, right? This is totally different. There has been no documentation proof that these tanks, TEPCO says, they will be used and have been cleaned. Well, if you're putting highly radioactive water in the tank, you ain't cleaning it. I actually did work on construction sites a long time ago, and with the scaffolders, and we would go inside some of these tanks, and you would put up scaffolding, so the next crew would come in and sandblast the inside of it. That's how they clean the typical oil refinery tanks, right? And even then, these tanks are basically cleaned out before you do that, right? And it's confinement wages, because you've got to go through a small inspection hatch and pass all your scaffolding through there. So it's you make a lot more money doing it, but according to the media, TEPCO wants to pump up and remove 1,000 tons of groundwater from the area near the reactors daily, if all goes well. So each day, 1,000 tons. Pumping up such a large, because they're only saying it to pacify some criticism, typically, see? Pumping up such a large amount directly next to the reactors of contaminated water tanks could have a potentially disastrous consequences. This could cause contaminated water to flow backwards towards the pumping system, making it unusable. And such a drastic lowering of the groundwater could also cause subsidence liquefaction, sinking in the core area of the plant if conducted improperly. Both the plants themselves and the current seismic standards come into question. If the quake was the major factor of the disaster, and then what happens if you make this ground unstable and you have another earthquake? Tanks will tip over? I don't know. But see, the tanks are not full. We know the tanks are not full because the buildings don't exist anymore. Reported pile damage and plant readings hint that the reactors may have suffered extensive earthquake damage, even though the shaking at Unit 1 was in the quake standards originally, they're alleging. Many reports of the workers said to witness damage to the cooling points at the Unit 1. So what they're talking about was that the earthquake caused the nuclear meltdowns because it damaged the intake pipes. They couldn't get water, even if they did have electricity, and they melted down. Extensive investigation is required, including inspection of Unit 1 in order to find the true cause of the disaster. But you can't inspect Unit 1 because it's lethal doses right next to it. You can't go in there and inspect it. And therefore, right, that's a little plus in their favor, because now you can't quantify that it's dangerous. Like earthquake is dangerous to nuclear. Currently, government investigators have not been allowed into the plant by TEPCO. That's a great one, isn't it? Currently, government investigators have not been allowed into the plant by TEPCO. Does anything surprise anybody anymore when it comes to nuclear? Radioactive dirt, dump it into the sea. That was the poll tonight. Does nuclear scientists' idea of dumping 30 million one-ton bags of radiation into the ocean prove that nuclear is hopelessly evil? I think it does. Well, I think it was stronger than that, actually. It does. It did. Ongoing health care for firefighters who battled Fukushima. I was battling Fukushima. The Fire and Disaster Management Agency has established a system to provide ongoing health care and health checks for firefighters, because the nuclear universities don't go there, the firefighters go there. The nuclear corporations don't go there, the firefighters does. Don't know nothing about it. Yeah, I got to put out fire at reactor 3. Who wants to draw straws? How does that work, I wonder? I got to go take a pee. I'll be back after you make a vote there. Like, who... Let's just move on because it's too strange of a question to ask, isn't it? The program will start with obtaining body radiation counts to go on to cover early screening for known health effects. So, yeah, you got to obtain body radiation counts, but you're at nuclear meltdowns. So, look, if you work at Hanford nuclear site for 8 hours, 60, 70, 80 years ago, just one 8-hour shift, you're entitled to health care for the rest of your life and a pension or a large payout. If you work at a nuclear meltdown, why it's melting down, we'll see what we can do for you next year, maybe. Come back in 5 or 6 years and see if anything showed up. God bless nuclear scum, eh? Fukushima contaminated water problems are worsening. 2014. TEPCO announced the week they wanted to begin pumping up water from the sub-drains near the reactor buildings. And this comes as they were also admitting the efforts to freeze the trench were not going well. Why would you build an ice wall? Like, really, why? TEPCO plan would include decontaminating the water before dumping it into the sea. This is 2014, August the 9th. They didn't have, the Riva system wasn't working. The tanks were full from the aquifers that they pumped up. There is no filtration system to filter radiation. It's immediately, like the hoses are so contaminated you can't step over them. Ever. Forever. So you can take the hoses or the pipes you use and bring them to a subway. Everybody walks past it, gets a lethal dose. Hang on. Hang on. Don't go anywhere. I'll find something. What are we talking about? I lost my mind. TEPCO. Oh yeah, TEPCO. Mama, don't let your babies grow up to work for TEPCO. They're a bunch of scumbag, degenerate, monster, evil dickheads. So, September the 5th, 2013, TEPCO releases video of groundwater entering the crippled Fukushima Daiichi complex. The radiation levels around the storage tanks used to store thousands of tons of radioactive water on site at Fukushima Daiichi have been rising to 2.2 sieverts per hour. So if you try to filter this kind of stuff out, you are in a no man's territory. Disaster strike struggle water decontamination for years, and just announced recently that they think they finally have the ALPS decontamination system operational. August 9, 2014. They think they got the ALPS decontamination system operational. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. It's a miracle. That was August the 9th, 2014. So let's go April the 21st, 2014. The advanced liquid processing system is yet to function reliably. But there was the Riva system, which was the French water filtration. Is literally a twin of the ALP system. TEPCO to abandon the Riva system amid contaminated water crisis. That's August the 12th. And what was this story from? August the 9th. So August the 12th, for 3 years, the system had been unused and kept out of operation. Well, you can't use it because the filter is so contaminated, you can't get back in the building. You can never change the filter. That the hoses and pipes leading from the tanks, so-called tanks, to the building don't make any sense because you can't step over them. They have to be encased in lead or thick cement, right? And they're not. So obviously, like they're destroying our future, and they wouldn't let anybody on site to see what the real issues were. The sub-drain pumping might remove some groundwater, but it could draw highly contaminated water out of the reactor buildings. Like, I don't think the reactor buildings actually exist anymore. Well, you know, there's... hang on here. I got some more pictures for you. Maybe that'll help you. So that's the original Reactor 3. That's gone. Reactor 4, it's gone. But here's the other Reactors 3 pictures. So remember, the reactor cores at the top of the buildings, and so are the fuel pools. And there is no top to these buildings. And we know there's no top to it because we watch them go up several kilometers and then fall back down. That's how it works. That's the truth. You can't deny the truth. The lack of clear understanding of where the curium for the 3 reactors is located. And then they show you bags. No, they didn't. That's the next story. It would have been appropriate because that's where the reactor cores are. Some of it, I should say. Reactor 1 and Reactor 2 reactor cores are gone deep into the earth from what we can see. And Reactor 2, the fuel pool, quite a percentage of it burned off, and the rest of it went through Reactor 2 containment, and that went deep into the Earth and China syndrome. And so they had hydrovolcanic explosions, and the Earth is cracked, we know, in 6 places where the emissions coming out of the ground, it looks like steam, is lethal doses of 10 sieverts per hour. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose. New problems and challenges plague Fukushima. 2015. Currently, they're attempting to remove the cover of the reactor, or Unit 1, the Kevlar sarcophagus. Now, that was put on there to hide it from the prying eyes of the press and media and airplanes and drones and that, right? But, look, you know, because it's a smokehouse, for instance. So let's say all you wear is suits, and you're married, and you come home, and the wife took all your suits and made a smokehouse out in the garden so that she can smoke a bunch of salmon. And do you think she's going to get the smoke out of those suits when they bring them to the dry cleaners? No. Are they going to be fit for anything? No. So imagine putting a Kevlar sarcophagus, which is like it's basically bulletproof, but it's just basically a tarp, a sophisticated tarp, over Reactor 1. And then that becomes so radioactive that, like, if you chop out a square foot of it and bring it to a subway, everybody walks past it for 1 million years die. So you made the building way more toxic, and eventually you had to remove it because it was radiating so much energy that it was better just to tear it apart and let it breathe for a year or two before anybody can... Or you can never get near it. Currently, there are attempts to remove the cover on Unit 1. This process not actually begun based on visual evidence of the plant. TEPCO has not been forthcoming in what is delaying this work again, and work at Unit 3 has been underway in early spring to remove parts of the crane that fell into the fuel pool. But nothing fell into the fuel pool because it went friggin' straight up in the air. The fuel pool was ejected right out of the buildings. That's Reactor 3. But I'll play along for a few seconds. I fell into the fuel pool. They stopped the removal work as they cleaned the soil out of the pool water. Oh, they called in the pool boy. Hey, pool boy! Can you, I can hear TEPCO. I'll send my pool boy over to Fukushima. He'll clean out the pool for you. I just want to get up and run your fucking head into a wall, eh? Around the same time, they discovered damage to the metal gate that connects spent fuel pool to the reactor well. Well, that part of the building, right? Because there's 2 fuel pools at the top of the buildings, and then there's the reactor core, and that's separated. It's in a containment, but it's also surrounded by water, right? And so when they take the fuel out of the reactor core, it stays underwater. They remove the gate, and then they put it into the fuel pool right alongside of it at the same height. And so to suggest that, like, the whole story is insane, but to suggest that the fuel pool and the gate and everything is still intact. These are maniacs, eh? It's quite the elaborate story, isn't it? After discovery, removal work at Unit 3 appeared to cease. No, it ceased because the building is fucking gone. Duh. International Doctors Group dispute the World Health Organization study on Fukushima. German physician Alex Rosen has published a new paper critical of the World Health Organization's claim, aka United Nations, like UNSCLEAR and IRPA and the IPRC and International Atomic Energy Agency. They're all the same organization. Just put out a different badge and the same people walks right in through the door. About radiation and the Fukushima nuclear disaster, Rosen mentioned that the World Health Organization's radiation measurements, this is 2012, inside the evacuation zone are much lower than those taken by the other researchers. Of course it is. They're scumbags. The scumbags / World Health Organization also assumed those who evacuated over the first few days of the disaster didn't receive significant radiation exposures. So when the reactors were blown up and releasing the biggest plumes, the most powerful plumes, there were lethal doses in the plumes. There was 3,000 of them ended up in emergency right away, the evacuees. And the industry were trying to blame it on stress. But it doesn't work that way. Like, there's how many super typhoons and super cyclones and super hurricanes have we seen 5, 6, 7, 8 million people move out from? Many times now, post-Fukushima only. It is known radiation levels were increasing in the evacuation zone even before people were fully evacuated. Fuck, there's many places they still haven't evacuated. Don't get me started. Whoa. Too late. Now you got me started. Somebody's got to pay for this. Hang on. So UNSCLEAR / the United Nations Atomic Energy Agency, UNSCLEAR, United Nations Committee on Atomic Energy Agency, Atomic Radiation. Hang on. I can't do 2 things at one time. My brain is just too bent and twisted. I got it, though. I got it right here, baby. Wait for it. UN dose in red bone marrow. Okay, this is fun. I need to spike this, but so give me 1 second. Because stories like these are always complicated, but when you bring in the information, it's not so complicated anymore. Bear with me. You won't regret it. Hang on. Stay with me. Stay with me. I'm almost there. Don't leave me now, baby. I almost got the pictures. Wait for it. Okay. They're populating as we speak. Here we go. United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation absorbed doses in red bone marrow in Japan for the first year. UNSCLEAR's 2013 report for the first year. So you see the name of the community over there, and then the next one is the population, and then the next one is the average disposition density of cesium-137 on the soil. Ignore all of these because this is propaganda. Now over there you're seeing the important ones is the community. In fact, I'm going to move over there. Watch this. Can you do that? Oh, that's not going to work out the way I wanted it to. Let me do it right here. Oh, I got to go that way. I guess I can give my hand back if I really wanted to. I'm doing it because I'm right-handed, right? So if I does this, what I got to do with that is I got to twist my whole body around. Hang on. This could hurt. There we go. Ow. Okay, so now, is that left or right? Hang on here. Ooh. What's going on here? Wait, no, I got another. Don't worry about it. So, this is what I want to do with the right hand, but I'm left-handed. Let me fix that. Okay, so I'll just do it the hard way. So look at the communities. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's the populations of the community, the second row. And this is how many atoms we're talking per square meter. So these communities, like 185, not 23,000 per square meter, but 185 at a nuclear plant pre-Fukushima would have been an evacuation zone. Now it's like, shut the fuck up and eat your radioactive spinach. So the average disposition, density, and they're only acknowledged in cesium-137. I'll run through this. Now, these are the same communities where they picked up millions of one-ton bags, remember? So look at all these communities over there, and all of these people in that row right there are living in nuclear wastelands, which is evidence in that row there. And so when you start looking at it realistically, you realize that these communities are surrounded by millions of one-ton bags. So they got to pick up all these bags, but they keep you in those communities. And I think it's insane that they're so evil. If they're so evil, they're willing to do that, then there's no limit, see? If they're so evil, they're going to leave all these people in a nuclear wasteland. And make no mistake, these we're talking about these are nuclear wastelands. So 105,000 sites like this. So you got all these people in all these communities. That's the second row, is the number of people. And the first row is the communities. And they didn't abandon these communities because you can imagine what kind of disaster that's going to be. But that's exactly what you should have done. But they're only acknowledging, which is hideous, cesium-137. And to only acknowledge cesium-137, it just shows you this unbelievable disconnect for your fellow humans and for humanity and for the species. Whatever happens to us is immediately going to get wrecking the species, right? Bear with me. I need one more piece of the pie. Oh, that was just luck. Just pure luck. Oh, I got a few surprises here too, right? Oh, I forgot about that stuff. Yeah, that makes it better. Okay, here we go. The helicopter can't go there, but it's okay for your loved ones to be sent there, right? So the biggest byproduct of radiated fuel rods is the curium isotopes. And curium has many daughters. You can see a lot of them daughters there. And you need lead shielding 10 times thicker than you do for plutonium. But if you go, like, let's just talk about iodine-129 for a second. So the pre-nuclear age was around 100 kilograms in the oceans and the fresh water. It was 100 kilograms. Various nuclear-related activities, weapons testing, fuel reprocessing, Chernobyl, and other authorized, because for 30 years they dumped it in the ocean legally. And non-authorized dumping of radioactive waste has increased the ocean's inventory of 129 by more than one order of magnitude. So just La Hague in France, the Sellafield reprocessing sites, discharged approximately 1,640 kilograms in the English Channel and approximately 720 kilograms in the Irish Sea. And these are totally different, right? One's stardust, the other one's anthropogenic man-made. And they like to conflate them. And when you hear tritium, they don't say tritium-3H, see? So you got to worry with all the isotopes of iodines and xenons, the fission products. And the West Coast, by the way, was 220 million atoms per liter of iodine-129 in the rain after Fukushima, sustained with a 15 million year half-life. Help wanted adds 6 employees that can carry out a conversation. That rolls out nuclear academics and scientists. We have plume models of krypton that are just terrifying, by the way. Radioactive rain caused 130 schools in Korea to close. 13 years later, they're claiming nothing ever happened. So there's many other isotopes that you got to worry about. Research are too frightened to get within 100 kilometers of the meltdowns. And so they're not working at the site. They're not wearing tungsten vests and working outside of reactor 3, I can assure you. The water cannons can't spray it. The helicopters can't land alongside of it. You got all these communities that the researchers are too afraid to get close to. And everything is... They picked up 30 million one-ton bags, right? And so it's really something when you start looking at the bigger picture. Hang on here. Absorbed average doses to the bone marrow, the red bone marrow, for 1-year-old infants. Dirty, disgusting parasites. And look at the communities. And so what they're trying to do is pretend that these numbers don't matter and that the only thing you had to worry about was cesium-137. If that's not a disconnect, what actually is? Average absorbed doses to red bone marrow for adults in the first year. And so they show you these same things, right? These are insane people. To be that disconnected, and this is their job. Their job is to come out and just stab you in the back. As soon as you turn your back, their job is to jump on you and stab you. Strontium-90 will contaminate the coastal groundwaters in 10 years. Well, strontium-90 peaks after the first 1,000 days. It's a 100-to-1 ratio of 137 after that. And then it stays peaked for tens of thousands of years. For tens of thousands of years. Tens of thousands of years. I'll bring that up very quick because that's our last story here tonight. We're finished now after this. So tens of thousands. So let's say 30,000 days rather, not years. 30,000 days. Divide that by 365. We know it's a hell of a lot longer than that. That's 82 years, right? No, it's not, Dana. Oh, hang on there. I forgot to bring it on the screen, darn it. I'll get there. See? 82 years. Told ya. If you don't be good, there'll be 2 Danas. Look at that. Alakazam! Yippee-ki-yay. There we go. That's what I got. That's all I got. I got nothing else. That's what I got tonight. Gonna have to suck it up. That's the best I could do. Oh, we got James is calling in. That's cool. Hang on, James. I want to use you as a guinea pig. I gotta plug you in. I think I got this sucker finished. I think I figured this out. Make a lawyer out of me. Watch. Here we go. Go ahead. Nothing. Son of a gun.
Let you know tomorrow, in Brussels, they're having the first ever nuclear summit.
Oh.
to usher in the Renaissance. Right. So the IAEA is going to be out there. They're going to be going off about how they want nuclear energy in Iraq, of all places. Yeah, it's like,
You're joking. Obviously, you're pulling my leg.
I mean, what are they going to use? The Tigris River as the inlet? Like, what are they
That's exactly what they're going to do, isn't it? I didn't see that. Thank you. I'll be watching for that one tomorrow.
I wanted to bring that to your attention. I wasn't sure.
I got
reading some headlines.
Because I'm in the time machine all week, right?
But this is going to be the same song and dance. They're all going to get together about carbon-free, all this crap. And, it's like, can they just send one of us over there to go hand out a flyer and remind them of the fuel cycle and the enrichment process and the mining, all of that? I mean, that's going to...
Like, I'm going to put a picture up on the screen for everybody. And we talked about this before, right? Imagine the picture, folks. They got reactor 3 and 4 there. If we had big signs like that down there at the nuclear meeting and saying, why are they, or even better, hang on, why, if we had loudspeakers, we can have them there pretending that they're in the nuclear meltdown, the medias. And that would be epic.
Like, they can use an image of the wrecked reactor 4 as the summit. That's the summit.
That would be odd. Like, we had a bunch of protesters. That was something I talked about last year or the year before, and I forgot all about it till you mentioned it. Wouldn't it be nice if we can fund protesters and send them all of these types of signs, and we can contact the signage company where they're to, and print out all the signs for it, and then FedEx it over to the protesters, and they can walk around with these signs. I mean, you could wreck the nuclear industry pretty fucking quick.
Well, because, the world looks at the normies, right? These people that don't know any better. I mean, they really just think, it can't be too crazy. I've been hearing this nuclear energy. The first time I'm hearing anything negative is from you, so there's got to be a problem here. But,
no, they don't know the difference, right? The average person, unfortunately, unless it's
it's just a battle. It's such a hill to climb. I mean, but it's so obvious at the same time. I mean, this doesn't take some kind of in the 70s, they had all these music artists, trying to put in that whole hippie era.
It was,
and everybody was lost. They didn't know. They're like, all right, you fucking hippies, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. But it can be so simplified, and just
well, we can win the battle.
Showing,
we can win the battle now. We can win the battle,
it's
sir.
the same. Maybe we could this is bad, but it's take a cue from the anti-abortion crowd with all their images of nastiness and stuff, and then just replace that with the dead marine life instead. And this is what nuclear does.
Yeah.
You want nuclear energy? Then you're going to have a dead whale on the beach.
On every beach, yeah.
I can't believe just how the world is just double downing right now. Despite all of the known issues, they got simultaneously, they've got Fukushima water. Scientists think it's safe. They don't know. But yet we're going to send Grossi out to the summit, and he's going to usher in this whole new SMR fantasy that's going to save the climate. And it's well, what about the waste? We're just going to send it to Finland? Is that the option? Finland's just
put it in a hole.
They're like the post child.
Little houses. That's what they are doing, though, right? That's the narrative is that way, but they're not physically able to do something like that. But they lull people into that complacency, and the media gets to here we are at Reactor 4. Imagine the balls you got to have to do that one when the building doesn't even exist. Here we are at Reactor 4, and you got all the medias And so it must be true, right? It has to be true. What all the media are doing it. And
oh yeah. They got less than a chest X-ray.
And Greenpeace is doing it. Yeah. And Arnie Gunnarsson done it, and Helen Caldicott done it. So it must be true, see? And you just blink Dana out. Dana doesn't exist, and problem solved. Have a nice day, right? And all you got to do with me is they just click a little button on their fucking mouse, and I'm gone, right?
Right, and it's just so insane. It's like we've got your viewers are the most. We've got to be the most educated out there. I mean,
by far.
We have been watching your show over in every night. We're loyal to the cause.
Yeah, no kidding.
And we're absorbing this information. Nobody else can for some reason. And it's like it just really feels like it's us against them. And it's so impossible.
It's a little
right?
tiny group of people holding the world on the shoulder right now. Fighting for the planet and fighting for the species. We really are. We're truly, we truly stand above the rest, man. Because we've never given up, we've never backed down, and we only get better every single day. On top of that, at some point, we're gonna be on the other side of the scale, right? There's no way we're not, because we already got the medal, right? We proved we can. We have the endurance. We have the capacity. We have the soul and the heart for it too, right? We're not some fly-by-night operation. We're here. We're at war. Everybody that's part of this group here, so to speak, are educated. You're at war.
And
yeah.
And I like to joke and say, there's only 27 people watching on a given night, but
yeah.
There's got to be there. I really believe, it's so strong in my instinct that this has to be being watched all over the universe, wherever people care about what's happening with this. And this is the light. It's really strange how it seems that way. That and it's like, God, if there's any moment now, if there's any of those people or whatever they're called out there watching, it's like, we need your help.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, we need it now. I mean, you need to come help and make this stronger because, it feels like we're just losing control.
Yeah, we're doing what we can, and it's even these shows are incredibly difficult, right? And it's you gotta gut up every single day. It's an incredible amount of work, and you gotta sit here and then tell the story at the end of the day. And it's just like, at that last moment, just before I go live, and I take a deep breath and I let the air out, and away I go for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I give it my all, right? That's my whole soul gets tossed out there, and I can't wait till the next night, right, to do it again. I can't wait because it's so important. I don't need to tell you, James, obviously, but it's so important, right?
It's got to pay. It's all going. It's got to carry some weight that's going to change the difference, because what you've done is just so remarkable. I mean, there's got to be so many people out there that don't chime in on the chat or whatever, but
sure, yeah, you know there is. Yeah,
there's no other outlet.
Well, it's us, right? I wouldn't have existed without us, and I get that energy from everybody, right? That's what keeps me going. I think is that energy I get from everybody.
And I guess it's proof because, again, like you kind of told all of us that they sent some kind of secret medical team to save you.
That's right. Yeah. No,
I mean, that's really powerful. I mean, that's like,
that was luck
going on.
I was lucky, man. Yeah, that was my day. It was either do or die that day. And so when the doctors told me they couldn't operate on me, there was a special team showing up. And they said, "You're CIA or FBI?" And I said, "No, absolutely not." And the nurse is like, "Well, you couldn't tell us anyway, right?" And I'm like, "Actually, I'm not. I swear to goodness, right?" And I kind of knew right then that there's a little gleam of sunlight around the corner. And an hour and a half after, half an hour after I came out of surgery, I actually was up walking, and I couldn't. I still remember clearly. I pinched myself, right? I couldn't friggin' believe it. The nurse said, "No, in a half an hour, you can walk to the bathroom on your own." I was like, No, there's no way, right? And half an hour later, I was awesome. In fact, I'd done a show the next night. Talked to the doctor and let me out so I could go home and do a show, right?
It's just proof, Dana.
Yeah.
It's proof that the world needs you so bad, and there's a force out there that recognizes that too.
Oh, there was so, yeah. No,
I'm a true believer in that.
Oh, they 100%. I do too.
Completely.
No, I 100% believe that, James. My goodness. And I'm glad you brought it up, actually. Okay, my friend. Anything else you want to throw out there?
Yeah, that's all I want to bring up. Okay, that's it. I love you so much, Dan.
Love you
talk
too,
to
buddy.
later.
Yeah. Okay, my friend. Yeah. Bye-bye. That's James, folks. Lucid. You see him in the comment section all the time. Alrighty. We already got the music playing. I'll bump it up a little bit. We call it a night. So burnt out. It's not funny. We got one show left for the week. Is tomorrow night. Looks like we're going to be got to get an eye on Brussels. It's going to kick off the big whoop whoop. And because I've been doing the time machine all week, right? I got so much it's hard to comprehend, but we'll cover both of them tomorrow night. Let's close the poll down for everybody. Does nuclear scientists' idea to dump 30 million one-ton bags of radiation in the ocean prove that nuclear is hopelessly evil? When I was doing the poll, sometimes it's really difficult for me to come up with a poll because we so many polls, right? In fact, I should just do a book on polls because the poll is an incredible story in all these polls. But it shows you the madness, the absolute insanity, right? This is madness to even suggest something like it. It's madness. But it does show you this contempt that they have for us. So if I got 30 likes, make sure to give us a thumbs up if you make it this far. I probably won't register because the industry has isolated me for so long. We'll see everybody tomorrow night for the last show of the week. Don't forget the show. Yeah, good night, everybody. Hugs for everybody. I just want to get off this picture in the background. There's a picture I want. Good night, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see everybody tomorrow night, last night of the week. Don't forget to make it. It's better to watch this video in the first 12 hours because they're fucking with my videos. They're adding time onto my videos, so I'm worried about what they might be putting in the videos. Take care, folks. We'll see everybody tomorrow night.